cravings can feel like a drug addiction. Sweats and shakes, you can't focus on anything, so we're not dismissing.
I've now had so much of these highly palatable foods, I've become desensitized to these like less palatable foods, and they just don't scratch any itch whatsoever.
Cravings and hunger, is there a difference between the two?
You never crave like a banana.
Yeah.
It's always something that's like high fat, high
Yeah.
sugar, salt combined.
Yeah.
Like a croissant.
If you give yourself like unconditional permission to eat anything you want at any time, you typically don't. Am I really going to miss out on my progress because I can't say no to tomato and cheese on bread? And you're like, oh, that's a bit soft.
I'm Ryan Stevens.
Dr. Taylor Waters.
I'm Ben Oliver.
Welcome to the Superhuman Show, yeah?
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Superhuman Show with your host, Ben Oliver, Dr. Taylor Waters, and Mr. Ryan Stevens. So,
Mr. Shaking Stevens.
how Shaky Stevens?
All right, Taylor Johnson.
How do we master cravings? And we need to put the Little Britain cravings
Yeah.
cravings clip. So for the US guys, there's a show in the UK. God, it must be like 15 years ago.
Yeah, called
maybe even
Little
20.
Britain.
They wouldn't let it go live.
And
no.
it was
no way.
It's slightly racist.
Yeah, it was a comedy sketch show, and one of the comedy sketches was a woman called Pam Dawson who did
you remember this?
who did Weight Watchers, and one of them was talking about cravings.
Yeah.
And if we find the clip, we need to
put it in here as well, yeah,
because it's hilarious.
Yeah, you see, that's why you're so fat, because you don't take it seriously.
But this is it's a good topic because, you know, we see it a lot with clients when they're in a fat loss phase, and they talk about cravings and hunger. Is there a difference between the two? How do you manage cravings? What are some tactical things that you can put in place with your plan to mitigate those cravings as much as possible? I don't want to say get rid of, because sometimes it is a bit inevitable, especially at the tail end of a fat loss phase. But there's definitely some things that you can do to make it easier on yourself going through the process. So first, I mean, and you guys might have different opinions on this, and this isn't, you know, going from a textbook, because I'm sure there is a clear definition, but how I would separate hunger and cravings is cravings are specific and hunger is not. So if someone is legit hungry, you could give them an apple and they'd be like, I'll have an apple. You give them a chicken breast, they'll have a chicken breast. Like, they don't give a shit what they're eating. They just want to eat. A craving is like, oh, I'm really hungry. I really want donuts. And it's like,
I really want to taste salt. I really want to taste sweet. I really
there's
want to...
and you say, well, what do you want to eat? And they'll say the thing straight away. And it's like, so you're not probably hungry. You just want to eat that thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And whereas, like, if you've experienced true hunger, like, you take a bite of an apple and you're like, this is the best fucking food I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Whereas when you got cravings, it's like, well, if you're hungry, have some chicken. I don't want chicken. Then you're not fucking hungry. And so, like,
That's so true.
that's how I would define kind of the difference between the two.
Yeah, I'm on the same
I'm on the same
level.
page.
so-
it's like, what was he saying? It's like, you never crave like a banana.
Yeah.
It's always like something that's like high fat, high
Yeah.
sugar, salt combined.
Yeah.
Like a croissant.
Apart from like maybe like a, you know, like an Asian child, like, oh, Dad, I really want some broccoli.
Yeah.
And it's like no one in the US is craving their greens.
That does my head in is when someone's like, oh man, I'm starving. Like, oh, there's an apple over there. Oh no, not an apple. Yeah. Starving.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just so hungry. It's like, yeah, have some blueberries. No, I don't want blueberries. Yeah. Like, should we go Mackey's? Like, yeah. So
Should we go Cheesecake Factory?
yeah. So like so with cravings, I think one important thing is the longer you do a fat loss phase, the more likely it is that you're going to experience that feeling of craving certain foods, especially if your calories are getting lower and lower, and you're just from a byproduct of your calories going lower, your food choices are probably going to be somewhat limited to fit into those calories and macronutrients, that you're probably going to have to restrict yourselves from those other foods for longer. Whereas at the start of a diet, you know, or if you're dieting on more food, you have more food freedom to incorporate some of those foods, like if it's like a candy bar or like a pastry or something, like you can fit it in pretty well into your daily intake. As you start getting further in a fat loss phase, you're kind of like, is that 300 calories really worth, you know, that maple pecan pastry? Or like, you know, I could have a full on huge bowl of chicken salad that's going to fill me up way more. And then so maybe you go for the salad, but the craving of that thing remains. And then, you know, if you leave cravings for too long, then some of those splurges can happen. But yeah, I mean, there's a few different things that you can kind of integrate within your plan. But I would say, like, one, what's your go-to thing to kind of solve or help cravings with your clients, Taylor?
Well, I think the first thing just to sort of carry on your point there is always look to manage hunger first. Like once you've managed hunger, then you can deal with the cravings after that. Because if hunger is rife, then you're going to be craving all sorts. Like there is a tie between the two of them.
Yeah.
But if you can satisfy hunger, you're likely going to have a better control over the cravings as well. Is when you've got hunger quite heavily, and then you're also craving, like, because then you're gonna try and satisfy hunger with large amounts of those foods that you are craving, like donuts and things, and that's when, you know, calories can explode. Like, I'm always like, if you have got a craving, satisfy your hunger first, like with a big chicken salad. If the craving's still there, have half a donut and you're sound. Where if you go straight donut city, you know, 10 donuts in, and you're still hungry.
And
say,
the craving's gone, but you're still starving.
Yeah, so it's just a terrible way to go for it.
Yeah.
I think.
Go on. So in order for the question of what's the first thing that I would do, is I like to go down the route of environmental design. So let's get the environment around you so we're reducing the amount of triggers that we get. Because again, normally, like, very often I'm not craving anything, and then I'll see a candy bar, I'm like, oh, that looks nice. And then the craving starts. But like, once it's out of mind, I don't really think about it very much. So you're often looking to just remove as many of these triggers as we can. So one of the easiest way to do that is just manipulate the environment so that you're less, well, one, these triggers are less frequent, so you're not getting tested as much. And two, even if a craving is there, well, you can't have it anyway because it's not there.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite ways to just, rather than try and build this crazy willpower to overcome these cravings, well, just remove the amount of triggers that you have around you. And even when you do get a craving, you don't have easy access to these types of foods anyway. So the environmental design is always the way that I would go first.
Yeah, like creating an environment where you don't have to rely on like willpower as much is crucial. You know, one other thing I was thinking about as well is that, like, typically cravings will happen like on the weekend. Like, people will be winding down. Like, staying busy, like boredom is the silent killer of progress. I often find people will like snack or like have cravings because they're simply bored.
Yep.
Like, so if you can like stay, and if you think about it as well, like during the week, like they're very structured, they have a routine, they'll have work, they're almost too busy to even think about food. And then the weekend comes around, it's like, oh, I can have my bottle of wine and my pizza, they watch TV. It's like, fill that time with other stuff that's like conducive to your progress, you know?
I think as well, you can, when you look at stress response behaviors, where someone will say, you know, when I'm stressed, like, or like if I'm sad, I crave ice cream, or if I'm, and it's been like a learned behavior where you're craving comfort, and it just means that you're using food as a means to attain that comfort. And so again, like you were saying, like the foods that you crave, they tend to be like the ice cream, the donuts, the pizza, the junk food. And because there's something, whether it's from watching movies, and, you know, every breakup movie that you watch, they're eating fucking ice cream when they're sad. And it's like a subconsciously, it's like, oh, what if I'm sad? Ice cream's going to make me feel better. And, you know, maybe you've seen a parent, you know, eat certain foods when they're feeling certain ways. And so you learn that behavior. And so it's almost like indirectly you're like, oh, I'm craving ice cream. But really it's like, no, you're sad and you're craving comfort. Yeah. But you're using that as a means to kind of satisfy that craving. So I think that plays a role as well. But so when we look at like like you mentioned the environment as one kind of tactic, I think another tactic is this balance between incorporating foods that you like to eat more frequently to desensitize yourself to those foods. Like if you go in too extreme with your food choices and restrict all, for lack of a better term, kind of fun food. I'm not using junk foods or bad foods because they're not bad. It's not the food's fault. But if you restrict all of them, then you are going to, like, you typically crave the things that you are without, that you've been restricted from. And so if you go, right, I'm not eating any chocolate on my diet, I'm not eating any junk food, any of this, you're probably going to crave it pretty fast. Whereas if you get to eat a candy bar every day within your plan, you've taken the candy bar off this pedestal of this amazing food because you have it every fucking day. If you had if someone said like part of your plan is eating a donut every day, if someone's like, do you want to go for donuts? You're like, no, I'm good. Yeah. Whereas if you haven't had a donut in 2 months and someone's like, do you want to go to this new donut spot? You're like, yeah, and you get a dozen. Yeah. And so I think Lane Norton spoke about this, where there'd be like bodybuilders who would eat their chicken and rice 6 times a day, like super, super strict. Then they have their cheat day on the weekend where they eat whatever they want. And he said, like, they would look at me eating a slice of pizza every day being like, you can't get lean eating that. Like, you need to eat a clean diet. But he was like, well, if I have a slice of pizza every day, that's 7 slices of pizza in a week. You go clean 6 days and then binge on the 7th and have 20 slices of pizza. You're eating more junk food than me. Mm-hmm. But like, just because you're doing it in one sitting, you think that it's better than someone doing it, you know, across the week. And so I would take the lane approach there of like, for as long as we can, let's try and implement those foods to kind of keep you desensitized to them. Yeah. But there's always going to be a point where you're like, we're at that point in the diet now where we probably can't have pizza every day. Like, it's just not going to be worth it to us from a satiety standpoint. But then I would look at like, even, and I'm not a huge fan of like, oh, protein pizza or protein cheesecake, when it's like, it's not. And when you, like we were saying, when you're eating it, you're like, this is great. And then you try the real thing and you're like, my life has been a lie. Like, what have I been doing with this bullshit protein cheesecake? But
the fucking cardboard.
Yeah. But I think, and Trevor Kashi kind of taught me this, was when you have those cravings, look at the like qualities of the food and see if there is something you can substitute that's lower calorie. So it will be warm or cold, salt or sweet, like crunchy or soft. And so like, if say you're craving potato chips, like salted chips, then it's like, okay, it's cold, it's crunchy, and it's salty. Maybe like a pickle or something, or like some like cucumber with like throw some salt on or something. Like it's
pork puffs, that pork
rinds, like something which is like more macro friendly or more tailored towards your plan that still has the qualities of that food. You know, if you're like, oh, I'm really craving like potato chips, like, oh, I'm gonna have a bowl of porridge. Like, it's so far fucking removed, and it's like, I don't want something sweet and sludgy right now. Like, I want the crunch. Like, you know, even if it's like carrot sticks or something, like sometimes it's just the snack size food.
Yeah.
You know, and then equally, if you're like, oh, I'm really craving ice cream, it's like, well, maybe some like fat-free yogurt with berries kind of mixed in. It's pretty close, like similar kind of texture. Like it's never gonna be the thing.
Yeah.
But it gets pretty close to just keeping the cravings a little bit lower.
That's where, for me, where like diet soda comes in. Like, I get a craving for a sweet treat, and then I have like a can of Pepsi Max, and I'm like, done. Like, it wasn't the chocolate bar that I wanted, but it was enough of a just a stomach filler and a sweetness on my tongue that it was like, does the job.
Yeah, I love what you said earlier, and he was like basically relating the fact of like unnecessary restrictions. You have a little bit of it every day, right? And because like, let's say if I say you can't have pizza, that's all you'll be thinking about 24/7. It's like, I can't have pizza, and eventually you'll have pizza. Whereas if you can include those foods, like you said, a little bit every day, and you satisfy that craving, but there will be a point where it's not worth the trade-off, but still your mindset is like, I could have it. Like, I could have it, but I'm choosing not to, because the trade-off is I'm going to be very hungry the rest of the day. So I'm choosing to have high volume, more satiating foods. And just that change in your mindset is like, no, I can have it if I want, but I'm choosing not to, versus I can't have it. It's much easier to deal with those cravings.
A lot of times the deprivation that we believe we have is self-inflicted. And it's not that you can't have those foods. It's more like, you could have pizza every meal if you want, because you're an adult. You know how to buy pizza. Pizza's always there. You can go grab pizza. You're just not going to get towards your goal. But if you want pizza, you can do it. And you're like, well, I want to hit my goal, so I'm not going to have pizza. Whereas if I said like, no pizza, like I've told all the pizza chains you can't have pizza. If you go in, they're going to turn you away. You will travel out of town and be like, I'll fucking show you, and you'll find the pizza.
Exactly.
And so it's that, like I kind of always say, like, it's an analogy of like, if you were put in like a prison cell, and someone like locked the door behind you and said, you stay in here for 6 months, you'll get all the results that you're ever after. You can't leave though. Like, but you'll get all your results in here. All you're going to want to do is get the fuck out of that room, because you can't leave. Whereas if they go, all of your results are in this room, I'm going to leave the door open. You can always go, but you're going to get all the results in here. You'll probably stick your head out and be like, that's not too bad in here. Like, I'm getting results. Like I can go. Like, the exit's just there. But it's like you've put this like mental restriction on yourself that's unnecessary. And so I think if you give yourself like unconditional permission to eat anything you want at any time, you typically don't, because it's like, well, I know I can, I'm just going to choose not to.
Yeah.
And then you don't feel as deprived. It's like the craving kind of like subsides because you build it up in your head and put it on a pedestal. And it's like, the other thing as well to remember is like, if you're really craving pizza, or just as an example, it's not like you're going to have the pizza and then you're never going to crave pizza again. You're like, pizza's always going to be there. Pizza's always going to be nice. You're always going to want to eat pizza.
Yeah.
And so like it's that like get out your system and then you get back on track.
It's
Like,
going to be straight back.
as
to
if
the
that's
system.
going to solve the problem. Like after 3 days, you're going to want it again.
Yeah.
Maybe the next day you don't crave it because you overindulged, but it's going to come back.
Yeah.
And so I think it's being able to say like, yeah, I do crave those things and I can still not have them and be okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
Cool. I was going to say as well, another thing with cravings is, the more like when you have that craving and you don't give into it and you actually see it through and like eventually the intensity of that craving will subside. Like you realize, oh, it's actually not that bad. It lasts like 20 minutes and then it just goes. Like the next time they come along, it gets easier to overcome it because you said, oh, well, last time it lasted like 20 minutes and then it just went. So each time you like overcome it, it just gets easier and easier to withstand that craving.
Yeah.
I often refer to it as like riding the wave. Like a craving will sort of start and then it will rise and then it's like, oh, this is quite intense. And then 20 minutes later again, it starts to go down and then it's not like it goes up and it feels like it's going to last forever. It's like, oh my God, this intense feeling about how much I want this pizza is really high. But you wouldn't stay in that mindset for like, 3 weeks later, you're still like, fucking hell. It's like, it actually subsides in quite a short period. So sometimes it's like just, again, like building experience, learning how to ride that wave and then realizing, you come out the other end and you're just fine, even though I didn't give into it.
Like one of the good things to do during that time when the intensity is so high is like distract yourself with something else. One of my favorite things to do, put my headphones in with music on, take my dog out for a walk.
Oh God, I say something else. His headphones on and have a
Hey,
wank.
that's a good. Hey,
A wank, I think.
yeah, that's a great distraction technique. That's got to be a clip on
You
it.
need to get the Alan Partridge. Just get the clip on.
when the craving hits.
A wank, I think.
But the other, and like I remember Hormozy got a load of flack from Martin McDonald from this. Not that Alex would ever see Martin give a fuck, but Martin was trying to rip it apart. But it like, and I'm on Martin's side of like how it doesn't help anyone, but it just made me giggle where he was like, the reason why you haven't reached your kind of fitness goals is because you can't say no to like pizza like a baby. And it's like you can't control your urges like a child. And it's like, and like obviously Martin's argument was like there's so much more involved in that, in terms of like upbringing, like food availability, like all of that stuff. And I totally agree with. But on surface level, it's like I like to use that as like a mind game for myself. If it's like, and it's not even maybe like cravings of food, but like getting your steps in the evening or something. And it's like, oh, I'm really tired and it's a bit rainy outside. And it's like, you're going to let some water put you off from like going and getting your last 2,500 steps for the day, you fucking pussy. Yeah. And then I'm like, I'm talking to myself and I'm like, well, I'm not a pussy. Yeah. And it's like, I'll show you, Ben. And it's like marching down the road, getting my steps in. But it's like, you can like play that with yourself where it's like, with craving stuff, it's like, oh, am I really going to miss out on my progress because I can't say no to tomato and cheese on bread? Like, and you're like, oh, that's a bit soft. And again, we're not like you said, like that wave of cravings. Sometimes, especially if you have a really poor relationship with food, disordered eating behaviors and stuff, those cravings can feel like a drug addiction. Yeah. Like you can get, sweats and shakes, you can't focus on anything. So we're not dismissing that feeling, but it's like, I don't want to say that's the norm. Like there are certain situations where it's uncontrollable and that's where like eating disorders can build. But for most people like Gen Pop that have these kind of cravings, you're able to manage them if you kind of just have a word with yourself. And it's are you really going to lose out on your progress this week because you can't say no to one meal? Yeah. Because a lot of times it's like, that one decision is the deal breaker of the week. And you could be good 6.5 days and then you just can't seem to nail it on that last day 7. And then you ruin the progress for the rest of the week.
I think one of my favorite things when it comes to cravings is like I know it sort of goes against a little bit again. I know there's a lot of nuance here in some of the things that we are talking about, but when you say about like drip feeding these smaller foods in so you get more accustomed to having them and they become less on a pedestal. But again, everyone's cravings are going to be slightly different. And I think for some people is they get so used to eating highly palatable foods all the time. It's like they cannot satisfy any sort of hunger or craving with just like normal, less palatable foods.
Yep.
So it's like, like they always just want to eat, again, these highly palatable foods constantly. But it's like, and that's why I feel like, as a parent, that is going to play some sort of role. Because when you see someone say like, I don't like any fruit or any vegetables. And it's like, mate, there is a massive, like the difference between some watermelon and broccoli and asparagus and grapes. And like, there's so much difference between a lot of them. How can you pigeonhole the lot?
Yeah.
But what you are saying is because like natural foods haven't been designed to be as highly palatable as like man-made foods, I've now had so much of these highly palatable foods, I've become desensitized to these like less palatable foods, and they just don't scratch any itch whatsoever. Like when you've gone through like a prep or something and you've had to avoid those highly palatable foods for long periods of time, like you have an apple and it's like, that is
the sweetest thing
stunning.
you've ever had in your life.
So sweet.
Yeah.
But like when I was a kid, I used to drink like Coke. Then I moved over to like Diet Coke and Coke Zero. And at first I was like, that's a bit watered down, that. And then after like drinking it for like 10 years, if someone gave me a full sugar Coke,
it's
now I'd
too
be like,
much.
oh mate,
Yeah.
that is rank.
Yeah.
So the like sensitivity of your taste buds will change. So it's really important to have a lot of these less palatable foods and get used to those, because then like they do, like a big bowl of oats can be quite satisfying. Like it doesn't have to be like a big bowl of Cocoa Pops with like a drizzle over the top. And it's like when you eat like that too frequently, you just become desensitized to the other stuff, and then it's just not scratching the itch. So again, just like a drug addict will, they'll take a small dose of a drug, then they become, that's not really doing much for me now. So then take a higher dose, and then take a higher dose, and then those smaller doses almost do nothing anymore. So they just become desensitized to what's available to them. So I think it's really important to not desensitize yourself by having those highly palatable foods too frequently in too high a dose.
Here's a question for you. So the back end of your preps, right, where like you're really deprived, and like, like when you make a meal, you go, this is fucking lush. And then you actually start eating normally again post-thing, you're like, what the heck was I on about?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
mine would probably be the most bizarre thing. I used to put like tuna in my oats, and the oats made with water, and I used to eat that. So
Tuna
bizarre.
and
And then like you realize like, what the fuck am I doing?
I think like just like a plain bowl of oats, like cooked in water,
Yeah.
like, and maybe like a pack of Splendor. I was just like, this is heaven.
Yeah.
And like even like getting a whole egg in my egg whites with some ketchup, I'm just like, it tastes so much richer than egg whites. Like, you're just like spoiled by this fucking yolk. Like, it starts getting silly.
Mate, I remember I used to make this thing called risotto. And I remember it used to be oats cooked in water, but I'd cook them like somewhat dry. Then I'd pan fry chicken breast with onions and mushrooms. I'd pour the oats into the chicken breast, onions and mushrooms, and then season it with a garlic salt. So it was like a risotto made of porridge oats. And I remember like eating it and being like to my missus at like the time, like, you have to try this. It's literally lush. Like it's almost better than normal risotto. And she'd just be like, get fucked.
Yeah.
Like I'm not putting that anywhere near my mouth. And I'd be like, your loss. Funnily enough, the prep was over. Never revisited the risotto for something that was so tasty and never went back to it.
I went through a phase where like you'd make like protein cheesecake to try and replicate it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh god, this is lush. And then you actually taste real cheesecake. And you're like,
I would
funny enough, never made the protein cheesecake again.
Stack that off.
I would cook oats, like, so they were like rock hard as the base, and then I would use quark, like
Is that the cream cheese? It's
it's
Greek yogurt.
basically cottage cheese, but like blended so it's smooth.
Okay.
And then I would add some like whey to it, so it's like vanilla, and then I would like add that on top of the oats, and it's like protein cheesecake. And then I remember after I finished one of the shows, my friend made me a homemade cheesecake. I took one bite and I was like, what the fuck have I been doing? I was like, what's this fucking quark oat mix? I'm like, oh, it's like cheesecake. It's like, it's fucking not.
It's not like
There's
cheesecake.
nothing
It's like
it.
blended cottage cheese with whey protein and oats.
Yeah, it was dry and just terrible. But like you end up doing some pretty stupid stuff.
I found out in most of the stuff like protein bread or protein this is like it's not as good as the real thing.
No.
Yeah.
Well, mate, I remember once my uncle was like, "Oh, what do you think of this protein bread?" And he gave it to me, and it was like 4 grams of protein per slice. And I was like, "Well, what's that bread on the counter?" And he went and got normal bread, 6 grams of protein per slice. I was like, "It's got less protein than the normal bread."
And I mean, if like your main source of protein is bread, we've got bigger problems.
Yeah. Peanut
Have
butter,
you ever seen a
peanut butter and
jacked
bread.
duck?
Yeah, peanut butter and bread is your protein. But yeah, I think having the expectation that you are probably going to crave certain foods during a fat loss phase
And that's more than fine.
is fine. Like even hunger, like just like if you expect to be hungry, then when you feel it, it's like, yeah, you're on a diet. Like, and I think because a lot of times people view hunger as an emergency. It's like, why am I hungry? It's like, well, because you're not eating enough food and your body is having to pull from its fat reserves to make up the difference. So your brain is going to tell you, go eat some more food so we don't have to use our reserves. Like if you didn't have a fat reserve, you would die. Because like if you missed your energy intake by 1 calorie, body shuts down, dead. Like that's why like we have this infinite storage unit in us for like save it for a rainy day. Like anything in abundance, store it. We might need it. Like it's the best survival mechanism that we have.
Yeah.
It just doesn't look very good. And so but like you
I'm gonna last forever, but I look like a melted welly.
yeah, a little mashed potato. But
And that's it. And that's it as well. Like when they say, "What do I do when like cravings come?" Like you can choose to do nothing. And
Yeah.
doing nothing
There
is
an
doing
option.
something.
It is an option.
Yeah, you just sit there and be like, "They'll pass."
And
eventually.
even just like little things like you could have a coffee, have a decaf coffee, have a tea, like chew some gum, have a diet, Coke or something.
Brush your teeth.
Have a wank. There you are. Yeah. But like, even like, I mean, I use like nicotine gum sometimes as well. And like, they're like, I'm never going to say to someone else, as soon as you feel a craving, start nicotine. Like I'm not going to, people are like, oh, my diet was great. 20th fag of the fucking day. Like I'm not going to get people into like, certain habits, but there's quite a lot of tools that you can use before like
The actual
the actual thing.
itself,
Yeah.
Also, I never see someone having a craving at like 8 a.m. on a Monday. It's always like Friday, 9 p.m. in front of the TV. So like, once you've been through it once, it's like, you're probably going to get cravings this weekend.
Yeah.
And when you know it's going to come, you can have a better plan in place for it. Like, don't have the cookies at Friday, 9 p.m. in the house.
Yeah.
8 a.m. on a Monday morning.
Oh, I'm gagging for a pizza.
Yeah. I just ordered Domino's at 7 a.m. before work.
What's your thoughts on like trigger foods? Because again, you spoke about keeping those things in your diet quite consistently.
Yeah.
Then there's also like trigger foods, which just seem to set people off.
I think
and
that
it
there
really
are
hinders their
certain
progress.
foods which are going to be like someone's kryptonite, and they may, I don't want to say never, because we try not to speak in absolutes, but they will probably find it very hard to moderate those foods forever. And in those situations, it's probably a good idea to avoid them.
Or just avoid them, not forever.
No, but for that duration.
As long as you need to do it for.
I mean, I came from the side of my diets were quite extreme and not very flexible. And so I really couldn't moderate any junk foods. If I was going to McDonald's, it was 6 burgers. If I was having a donut, I was having a box. If I was getting pastries, it'd be 12 pastries. Like if it's a pizza, it's an extra large pizza with sides. It would never be like, I always take the piss out of you, Ryan, when it's like, you're like, oh, we got lasagna and there's half a plate of lasagna and then a half a plate of salad. And I'm like, your salad is taking up valuable lasagna space. Like, what the fuck are you doing? But like, that's been one of the things that you've been able to stay very lean is like, you'll have a couple slices of pizza and a huge salad on the side. Whereas I was always like, if I'm doing pizza, I'm fucking doing pizza till I'm going to shit my pants, and then I'm going to not eat pizza again. But you've been able to kind of incorporate those foods more frequently. But, for me, I wouldn't say there's many foods now that I can't moderate. Like pizza's probably going to be one. It used
I was about to say pizza's mine.
It used to be donuts where like I literally couldn't go and like I couldn't get a coffee from Starbucks and a cookie because I'd just be going to town. Whereas now, zero problem, having a pastry one thing to note is that it took me years of trying where like, it's like, oh, I'll try and have it a bit more often. Binge, right? Stay away from it. Try it again. Binge. And then eventually it was like, oh, the binge wasn't as bad. Oh, it was only 3 donuts this time. It wasn't a dozen. Then it's 2. Then it's 1. Like it didn't go, I've always binged on this food and now I can moderate it just by having one a day. Like it's like behavior change takes a long time.
Yeah.
So I would say like give yourself some grace. Like if you do accidentally have those foods or you think you can moderate them, turns out you can't. It's like, all right, like maybe you're not ready for it yet. Try again in a couple of weeks. But like if you never try, then you're probably going to set yourself up to never be able to moderate those foods. But equally, like if you were on a diet, I bet my salary that you wouldn't be having ice cream in that diet.
Oh, 100%.
Because you'd be like, what's the
Oreos.
point?
I was thinking in my head, my one
Yeah.
food would be Oreos.
Yeah.
And what do? I don't keep them in the house.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to buy them, I'll just buy like the packets of 2 or something.
Yeah. So you set your environment up so you cannot over consume.
Yeah. And that's
By
one.
the packets of 2, do you mean 2 rolls?
Yeah, two sleeves in there. Two straight down
Two
the
sleeves, yeah.
But also, so what was interesting there, which I think is very important, like when you're trying to deal with cravings, like we spoke about earlier, it's like winning or learning. It's like, okay, if this strategy didn't work, I'll try a different one. Is it a good idea for me to try and moderate Oreos on a Friday at 9 p.m. watching my favorite show on Netflix? Probably not.
Yeah.
I'll try it on a Monday night and make sure someone's with me who's going to be like, you're just going to have 2 of those and you're going to bin the rest. You know? So it's like trying different strategies that work with you, because as soon as you know you've got evidence that you can do it once, it's like, okay, now I know I can do it. What you reinforce becomes ritual, right? So then you've got evidence that you can do it, and then you can just keep replicating it. But that's the most important thing. If you have one strategy on how you're going to manage that craving, if it worked, great. If not, what can I do differently next time to try and manage that craving a little bit better?
Yeah.
I think it's important as well is when you speak about like moderating your ability to manage that food, again, you're only looking to moderate it in the long run anyway. It's like you don't have to have something every day to show you can moderate it.
Yeah.
It's like for me, I would say I moderate my pizza intake relatively well. However, generally, if I have pizza, I overconsume on that day. Like, it's very rare that I will keep my energy balance in check on that day and have pizza.
Yeah.
Because when I do eat pizza, I like to eat a good whack of it. I can't just have like a slice. Like, I like pizza. But maybe I'll only have pizza once every 3 weeks or once every 2 weeks. So it's like I've learned to moderate my ability to eat pizza. It's like, but then some people, they say, if the current frequency of your pizza consumption is inhibiting your ability to get leaner or stay lean, and that is your goal, then you need to learn to moderate it better because you're currently not able to do it. So it's like, again, I would say pizza is one of my trigger foods, and I very struggle to manage my smaller portion size of pizza because I fucking love it.
Yeah.
But I can still keep it in my diet to some degree, just at a less frequent dose than someone else would.
One last tactic which I find quite useful for myself is it's almost conflicting, so it is going to be situation dependent, but I would keep my meals fairly bland, because if I make all of my meals sweet, then I'm probably going to crave more sweet things. And whether that's, like even if my meals are, within my plan, if all of them are like sweet and really palatable, I'm probably whacking up my hunger or food focus unnecessarily. Whereas if my foods are quite bland, one, like you said, I'm going to be more hyper responsive to sweet things. I'm going to need less of them, but also my food focus just goes down. Like if I set my meals up that like, yeah, they're not bad. Like I don't necessarily look forward to every single meal, but I tolerate them. My food focus goes quite low. Whereas if every meal is a Michelin star, like food orgasm, like you said, then I finish one meal and I'm like, 2 more hours, and then I get my, my risotto or whatever, and I can't. I'm so excited for that meal. Finish that one. And for dinner I've got my protein cookies and pancakes, and then all you're thinking about is the next meal all fucking day. Whereas if you make your foods fairly bland and kind of like bro-ish, your food focus tends to go a bit lower, and you just give less of a shit about what you eat.
Well, that's it. I say just get used to less palatable foods.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many benefits to just doing that,
Yeah.
both short term and long.
Yeah. So there's some tactics that you can employ if you are experiencing those cravings during a fat loss phase. But yeah, it's going to be situation dependent and previous behaviors, habits, and things. Maybe it's the stress. Maybe it's not having those foods enough in your diet. Maybe it's having them too often. Maybe it's the foods that you just really can't control.
The food environment you have
the
around
food
you.
environment. But there's definitely some things that you can take away there and try and implement just to mitigate those cravings as much as possible whilst you're pursuing your fat loss phases. But thank you as always for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify, and we'll see you next time.
If you love this show, please like, share, and leave us a 5-star review so that we can help more people. I'm John Matson, Superhuman CEO, reminding you to always go get what's yours.